Your alternative talk radio contact, The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
So, Robert, what I did was I went back and I re-listened to my reading of your son's story, The Creature at Camp Willett. And it was aired for an insider-only episode. And then I kind of reached out to you when I put it together that you were his dad. And I said, well, if you would be willing to come on and talk about that and anything else you wanted to, because you were mentioned in his email to me, which like I said, I read off to the insiders, you agreed. So thank you so much for doing that. And of course, welcome to the show.
Oh, sure. No problem. I'm glad to do it.
Now, I don't know if you wanted to start kind of in order of the ones that I chose, which probably would be preferable, right?
Oh, well, that's fine. I can go over the Camp Willett first if you want.
Okay.
At least my end.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, and before you get into your part, can you kind of give a little bit of background on, Camp Willett, where it is, all of that kind of thing, and then we can kind of jump into as far as your experience and your side of that story.
Sure, yeah. Well, I didn't really listen. I tried to, listen to part of it about a month ago and really didn't get a chance. So I kind of scanned through what he had, but I didn't get through the whole thing. But either way, my Camp Willett is located in Ojai, California. And it's a Boy Scout camp that was very active and kind of went inactive for quite a few years because of a access issue. You had to go through private property to get to where it's at because it was kind of landlocked. So they utilized a lot of the other camps in the county. So it sat vacant for probably a good 20, 30 years. And when we started using it back up again, they were still having land disputes with the owner and stuff. And I don't know what, when I went up, personally, I was working on the staff, and there was a couple other staff members too that didn't want to stay in one area. Mm-hmm. And to me, I just got bad vibes off of one area, so I tended to stay in a certain area, especially in the evening. Not sure really why, but I get different feelings about things, and I know there were two other staff members that kind of talked to me about the same thing. In fact, when they couldn't get in a certain area, one of them would just stay in his car because he didn't want to be out where that area was where the staff was. And yeah, I don't know why. It just really gave me some issues and feelings, and I couldn't really figure out why one area in particular gave me, just these issues. And so my son was up with his scout troop during the same time that we were up there for a camp thing, and they went off into the woods and they started experiencing some things that they really couldn't explain, like voices and things moving around the woods. And it happened a couple times to them. And I just basically kind of told them, hey, be careful, don't go into that area. They were kind of like a group that didn't always stay with the rest of the scouts and do all the other activity. They always went out and did adventurous stuff.
Right.
So they would always go off on little adventures, which to me is cool because, that's part of being out in the woods and having a good time. And sometimes you learn a little bit more exploring on your own. yeah, one of the evenings in particular, because I'd been up there a few times, and like a year later, they kind of went out again and did the same kind of stuff, and this time the activity was a little worse that they had previous to what they'd had before. One of those evenings, we had one of the nights they have a flag retirement ceremony, and during the flag retirement ceremony, they lay to rest a few of the flags, and they burn them in a ceremony. It's a way to properly get rid of a flag, and you do this. It's kind of like an honorable thing to put it down in a certain way, and you burn it. Never touches the ground. It gets folded. There's a little ceremony.
Right.
And so part of that ceremony is you stay with the flag, and you stay till all the embers are gone, because you don't want, first of all, you don't want a little forest fire starting. And second of all, somebody is always standing watch over the flag. And a lot of times the kids will pick out the grommets the next day, polish them up and wear them, in remembrance of the flag. And so one of my duties as one of the adults was to be one of the adults making sure that, everybody was taking care of what they were doing. There's an adult on the fire watch with the kids. And to me, we were down in this little gully where they have, it's like kind of like a little amphitheater. And at the bottom of this gully is where we were having our closing ceremony and awards, and then we did the flag burning. So I was in charge of a group of kids that were doing the flag burning ceremony. And when everything was good to go and everything was out, they were like, well, we're going to come back in the morning and check all the stuff. And I said, fine. Well, I had my truck down there with all the fire supplies and stuff to put out a fire. And I decided, you know what? I'm more comfortable here. I'm just going to stay here than up in the canyon where everybody else is, especially the place that wigs me out. So I was down there in the little gully by myself. And to get down in there, you either have to hike around an area, and everybody hikes down into this like amphitheater bowl. It's kind of like it's a little mountain amphitheater. Mm-hmm. And there's one dirt road that's about wide enough for a truck. That's like a little access road that goes down into that little gully. And so if the truck's coming up, it's one way. There's barely enough room for, it's wide enough for a vehicle. So I was down in the valley, and I fell asleep. And I had like this nightmare of only thing I can describe it as was like a minotaur. And which is weird because there's really nothing like that in the lore of the area. I mean, there's like in Ojai Valley, you have like the Goat Man, or you have Charman, a lot of stuff in that same area, which is actually only a few miles from where Camp Willett is. And in my dream, this thing had started shaking my truck and jumped into the back of my truck and was beating on my truck to get in. And I drove up this road, and there was a cow in the middle of the road, because there's a working ranch all the way around. It's working ranches. And it was blocking the road.
And this is still in your dream at this point, right? This is all still in the dream, right?
Still in the dream. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this cow needs to go. And like I was honking, I couldn't get it to get out of the way. And this thing was just coming at me and coming at me and coming at me. And as it's ripping my door off, I woke up and I heard what I thought was a snort, like a bull snort. And the only thing I could think was a minotaur, right? So I get in the truck, I just start hauling up this gully road, and coming up out of the ravine is a cow towards the road that I'm supposed to be on. And I realized that the tag number that I saw is the exact same tag number that's on this cow. So now I am like, I don't care if I got to run this cow over.
Right.
I'm not going to get stuck here. I am not going to get stuck here. So I just gunned it, and I almost hit the cow going up through this dirt road at night, and I got out of there. Now, I couldn't really sleep, and I still had the vision of this thing in my head. So all night I'm up thinking about this thing, and I'm sure I still saw it. I'm positive I saw it when I was going up the road behind me in the rear view. So the following day, I talked to one of the other scoutmasters he's Native American descent, so am I, and he was discussing that the reason that he would not sleep where we were sleeping was because it goes down the opposite valley to this one ranch where this guy doesn't allow us access through. It's a 1 mile road from Highway 33 from Ojai to get into this camp. But this guy won't allow access to the camp. Mm-hmm. So everybody has to drive 15 miles on this dirt road all the way around a mountain and up through 3 other ranches to get down into this scout camp.
So it takes like 3 or 4 times as long because you have to do that probably, right?
Oh, yeah, because he wouldn't let us through. But that guy's ranch kind of gives me the willies. And there's a couple other guys that I know that ride mountain bikes through there that have been chased off by that guy. But
Robert, was that the same guy? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but was that the same guy that your son and his 2 friends encountered? And at first he was like, because they kind of went off on their own, like you said, and they went on a walk.
Exactly.
And at first he's like, "What are you guys doing?" They're like, "We're just out walking. We're Boy Scouts. Where's your uniforms?" Son's like, "We just left them behind. Yeah. It's no big deal." And at first he was cool, but then it didn't take him long to come back and go, "You have to leave right now." So that's the same guy.
Yeah, so that's the same guy that owns that property that's down there. So I was speaking to the other scoutmaster, and he was sort of like, "Well, I don't know how to tell you this, but I just get the weirdest vision through here." He's like, "Before we had our ceremony, I saw, and some of the boys saw up on the ridge were figures, and it looked like some of the local natives that used to be there a long time ago, because none of the Chumash are in that area anymore, but he's like, they looked like Chumash. And we all kind of saw them when we were setting up. And I told the boys to, just relax and enjoy it, because you're never probably going to see this again. And then they just kind of faded off. But he said that while he was watching this, they had spoke to him and told him to be careful of what was around the area. So whether it was more telepathically. Mm-hmm. So I tend to believe this guy quite a bit, because he's a pretty honest guy. And so I said, well, I kind of told him my experience, and I said, "Would you like a description of what I saw?" And as I'm telling him, he said, "You saw a minotaur." And I was like, "How in the hell did you know that?" And he's like, "Because that's what I keep seeing in my vision, that that's there." Now, this makes no sense. Like, I want to know what would cause like a minotaur type thing out there, because I don't even know if, to me, what I saw and what I felt was not human. I don't even know whether it was a minotaur or whether it was something taking that form that had never been here on Earth before. I don't know, something that never had a soul.
Yeah, I think it was kind of described as like a non-physical being, right? Like, it's like you said, it's never been here on Earth. It never was meant to be here on Earth.
Yeah, and that's what I got from there. Now I haven't been there since, because they've had all their stuff since that camper. They've had stuff at other places, and so I brought it up to a couple of the people in charge, and of course they think I'm crazy. But I'm not the only person who's seen that. another scoutmaster's seen that thing. A couple of the kids have seen that thing. And when I was kind of telling my son, hey, tell me what you see, he described the same thing without me telling him.
I think that something that your son brought up in the email was that he actually, I think he and the other boys saw shadow figures, like they actually saw them with their eyes, and he never actually saw the Minotaur, but he had a flash in his mind, like you said, of a Minotaur. So it seems like that's the vein that thing is running, right? It's not really being seen with, quote unquote, your waking eye. It's always with, in a dream state, or maybe, like you said, a telepathic thing.
Correct.
And Robert, I'm sorry, before you go on though, because we keep using the word Minotaur, but maybe someone's not familiar with what one of those actually looks like. Can you describe that?
So a Minotaur is like something that, it's a creature that's sort of half man, half steer. So the face and upper torso is of a steer, and the arms are technically like what I saw was the head of a steer, big huge horns, a human body, but the lower half was also like a steer, like standing on hooved feet, standing upright, not, kind of like a Sagittarius thing, but like standing on bipedal.
How big was it?
And,
was this a mass, like if you were standing up next to it?
Yeah, I would say it was about 8 feet tall, a good couple feet wide. A big linebacker.
Yeah.
Huge. Muscular. And that's what I got. And I can, that's what I saw. And I saw it too. From the side and from the mirror. But I don't know whether it was all in my mind's eye or my head or what.
But it wasn't just you though. That's so interesting.
Correct. It wasn't just me. It was other people that have seen the same thing.
Considering your background and some of the other scout leaders, there are beliefs on some of these things and how you might be able to conjure said thing, and that it goes from different veins of witchcraft, or if you want to go the religious route, you can go all sorts of different directions with this. But considering your background, how would that even come to be that this thing would look the same across different peoples and in these states?
Well, that's kind of why I'm trying to figure out what it is in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So my son has reached out to several people, and they blow him off because that's not supposed to be there. Maybe you saw the Charman, or but that's not it. They even have like the Billy Whack monster thing, which is actually a couple of hills over. But whether that's not really described in the same way. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Billy Whack monster, but that was kind of something that's similar to like a goat man type creature.
Correct. Yes.
This definitely wasn't that small. This thing was huge.
And it certainly wouldn't be the Charman, because he has a very, very unique description of
exactly
when he shows himself to people.
Correct. And the bridge that all this stuff happens on is about a mile away from the intersection where the camp's at.
Which is also, of course, very notable. Yeah.
Correct. Oh, yeah. And so there's a lot of supernatural hotspots right in that area. And, I can't tell you what the guy down the hill that owns the property is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know because I've heard several people say different things about how they get when they speak with him. And they just get a sense of, hey, this guy is not right. And there's been talk of rituals or things going on in the area from that property. But I don't know. That's speculation. So whether that's something that's been there throughout time, or whether that's been there from recent times and conjured up, I don't know. But I can tell you there's parts of that area that you could tell were family sites or areas of where, like Chumash Village site. And there's parts of that area that are like, they feel good. It feels right. It feels like home. But you go to one section of the mountain and it's like, I don't need to be here. I need to get the hell out of here. So it seems like I don't know, to me, it seems like it was brought there somehow from something, whether it was conjured up or all the negativity going on, I don't know. Or whether maybe it's possibly something else from the area. I know my son's tried to do quite a bit of research on it and finds nothing on it. And he's reached out to other paranormal groups just to, hey, does anybody have any ideas? And they blow him off.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want to know. He's like, I'm just curious. What was it that's there? And they're like, oh, that doesn't exist there.
So okay. He's found no other similar stories.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully this
there's obviously something there because there were several people that have seen the same thing or felt the same thing.
Yeah. Man, what an interesting area. There's very few areas that have such a strange amalgamation of different things like this. I mean, like I said, Goatman, Charman, you've got this Minotaur creature. And something that your son brought up in the email, and this really, when I read this, it just gave me the creeps. One of the first incidents that they had when they were kind of walking down, there's the tree of the tunnel tree and everything. He said that they heard a cow, but it sounded like it was in pain. Mortal pain, like something was, it was being stabbed or something, it was like, screaming.
Yeah, and to me, that was maybe something luring them in, like to go, hey, what's going on?
Right.
To get them deeper into those woods, because there were, like that road, the kids weren't supposed to go down that road because it was a shortcut to that guy's property.
Right, exactly. But that was very close to his property.
Correct.
But then they didn't, they didn't seem to go there. And then he said that the scream of this quote-unquote cow turned into a roar. And then, of course, they were like, well, we're not going in there for sure. You know, it seemed like it just couldn't contain what it was. It was trying really hard, like you said, to get them in there, but it didn't work.
Yeah. And he's recently talked to a few of the people that were, like, they had stuff going around the tent where they were at. They had tracks. They had other things that they had experienced. And there was one of the kids who he was having a lot of issues and still won't talk about what he saw.
You mean one of the kids that was with him that he wrote about?
Yeah. And so, like, this kid had some issues after that. And then kind of dropped out of scouts. And, but he was, like, one of the kids that would go on all the adventures. And after that, he was like, I'm done. Oh. Like, he would not talk about it, would not anything. Like, we don't know what happened to him because he kind of got separated off for a couple minutes from that little group. And everybody thought he was all right. And they're like, he was kind of like almost in a catatonic state for a little while.
So did he come back to them, or did they end up stumbling across him?
They stumbled across him.
And what was he doing?
And then they all kind of regrouped. He was just standing there.
Oh, geez.
So they all recently went up to try to get, because my son does a lot of filming stuff now and everything. So now that he's older, he went up there and they hiked up there to try to get like EVP and recording and everything. And he said it was a totally different feel. Like there was nothing. But during that time, again, my son was still kind of into recording and filming and this and that. It was like kind of the start of this little deal. Everything they had got on tape, everything that they had gotten on audio recorder was blank from the time they left the camp till the time they got there. But when they got back to camp, they were all reviewing stuff that they got.
Right.
Yet when they got home, nothing. Everything was gone. So I don't know how to explain that.
I mean, do you
And
have
neither did you.
do you have a theory as far as, the old man and the truck and, there was
My theory is that it has to do with that guy's property, and like he was kind of an erratic person, and for people that ran into him, he'd be talking okay one moment and then a little erratic the next, and they said he just didn't seem right. And I believe that it's tied to the property that's there, because at the bottom of the hill is where his property is. Even the scouts would let his cattle go onto the scout property. There's no fence. It's just, okay, this is the boundary line, because they're not using it, and the cows take out most of the brush. So they would let the guy graze, and the deal was supposed to be, hey, we let your cattle graze, you open up the frontage road for us and allow us to, and he would never let them use the access road. In fact, he would run people off, literally run them off the access road into a ditch when he said they could use it, and get violent when people would go through, to like where you'd get a firearm or whatever. And so they just decided we're not doing it. Now, there's like court battles and everything else. And now at this point, I don't even know if that guy owns that property anymore. And I think that's part of the whole, my son said that when they went up the last time, that it was fun. The thing that really got me is they went up in the afternoon to do all this setup, and they were going to film at night. And I told them, don't do it. Like, I wouldn't go over there at night. I wouldn't. No way. You could not pay me to go there at night in that area. And I worry that if I was in another area of that camp, and if I was by myself, I think it would cross through, because where our firebowl was, you would have to cross through, and that seemed like a pretty good area to me. To me, I sensed it as a good, safe area, or else I wouldn't have crashed there in my truck. And I'd sleep out all by myself all the time. No issues, no problems. Just I'll go hiking. Okay, I'll solo sleep. No big deal.
Yeah, but as far as that place, you only had certain areas that you would sleep, even inside your truck with the windows up and the doors locked, the whole thing.
Correct.
So that begs the question, and you may have already answered that with the fact that your son just went there recently and he felt like the whole place was fine. Was the land already, had something nasty going on with it, and the guy showed up, and then the nastiness kind of overtook him, or did he bring it there with some kind of weird rituals?
I don't know. I can't speculate. Whether it was feeding off of him or he was feeding off of it.
Right.
I don't know. And again, like I don't want to say stuff bad about that. I've never met the guy, so I couldn't say. And
right.
I legally wouldn't want to get in trouble with this guy, but from what I had heard, that the property did change hands, and they're still working on a deal with the new property owner to get an access. And I guess this is working out, but
access
I'm not really involved in scouting much more. Access to drive through the property.
Oh, okay, for a new Boy Scout camp to reopen that.
Yeah, so they could get there within 5 minutes as opposed to 45 minutes to an hour.
Would you go back out there? You said probably not at night, but would you go back out there during the day and check it out?
Oh, in the day, sure. Oh yeah, I'd go back in the day.
But not at night.
I wouldn't go at night.
Even though your son said it feels better there.
Yeah, I don't know. If I had a huge group, maybe.
Yeah.
But I just have a feeling if you had a couple people, to me, that I just feel like it'd split you up. I still don't. Just because of the way I felt when I was there, I'm going to say nope.
Well, I think that your story about, you having the dream about the Minotaur, and then all of a sudden you, still in the dream, you see this cow with this ear tag, so the ear tag has a number, so that everybody knows. That's how farmers keep hold of their cattle and keep track of their cattle. That's still in the dream. Okay, it's a dream, no big deal. But then you wake up, you're driving away, and then you see the same cow with the same ear tag. That is extremely strange.
And I'm not saying that, the number had a special significance, 666. I'm not saying that.
Right.
All I
No,
remember is
it was just the same
that
one.
thing was standing in front of my truck in the dream, and my
Yeah.
headlights were a couple of feet away from the ear tag. And I, like, when it started coming up the hill, I was like, And I
That's the
started
same
gunning
one.
it, and
Yeah.
it started going faster. And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
at this point, I'm taking somebody's cow out. I'm not staying here because I wouldn't be there anymore. Like, I didn't know
Yeah.
what was going to happen, but I was gone. I didn't care.
Well, I guess you
So I
figure
took off and
if the
went.
cow is still there, then the Minotaur could still be there, right?
Yeah. I mean, why does all this stuff, like, it correlates, and it's like, what? Yeah. I don't know how else to explain it, but I was out. I didn't care
I don't blame you.
what I had to do to get out of there. So
I wonder what's really gone on that land, though. You know.
I don't know. I would be curious to go back with people and try to find out, but there's no real there's no historical anything that anybody's been able to find out about it. Like, one of the other scoutmasters tried looking into it on his own time and found nothing either. And I think my son's reached out again to local people here, and they haven't heard anything about it.
Mm.
And the other groups that he's tried to reach out to, they just blow him off. And he's like, I don't want to go. I'm only telling the story because I want to find out what's going on. He's like, I'm curious now. That's my son's whole deal on it.
Yes, and if anybody has any other information about that area, please contact me, and I can forward your information to Robert. He's already said that, yes, I would like to know more, please. And I mean, I will put this in the show notes, but I will link that area, Ojai, California. Like Robert said, you got Charman, you got the Billy Whack Monster, aka the Goat Man. The whole area has a lot of high strangeness. So if anyone has any information, especially though on the Camp Willett situation, and if you've seen anything strange out there, let me know and I can pass it on to you, Robert. Okay, so in your initial email to me also, before we hopped on here, there is some stuff that you're okay to talk about as far as your history, your family's history, and then we can talk about some of your personal experiences, especially some of the early on stuff. So, I mean, what about some of this, generational stuff as far as your family goes that you want to share with people?
Well, yeah, okay, I can share some of that. I just feel that, like, my family has some kind of a generational curse on it. We've had quite a few people in the family that have had, I don't know, things never go right. And they get visions or visited by people and things, I guess I could say, or bothered by whether it's entities. And I'm not sure whether or not to me, I'm starting to believe it's a generational thing. And it kind of, I'm talking to my dad recently and finding out, as I started mentioning some of this stuff and opening up about some of my own experiences to my parents and my aunts and uncles, I'm getting a whole lot of, oh, your grandma was that way. Or your great-grandmother has had a lot of problems or had a lot of issues with things following her. And I recently found out, because this is something about me, is that my birthday is around December. Around maybe beginning of October, end of September-ish, I start experiencing a lot of paranormal things happening to me. I perceive a lot of things a lot more, and it kind of ramps up around my birthday time in December and kind of starts to ramp down through January. And then, I'll see things or hear things every once in a while. But it seems like there's like a couple of month period that nothing's going right, or things don't go right, or there's something that's been following me from place to place since I've been younger. And it ramps up around this time of year. And for some reason this year it hasn't. Maybe it's because something I did last year that seems to have worked. But I found out from my dad and my uncles that my grandmother was constantly haunted by something, I guess I could say.
Mm-hmm.
She used to see people die, and she knew they would pass away. My grandpa was a judge for a little while, and a lot of times she would know what they did and exactly what they did, and my grandpa never wanted to hear about it because he had to rule by what evidence was shown to him.
Oh, that's tough.
But a lot of times my grandma was like, this guy murdered 4 people and killed that little girl. Couldn't tell my grandpa.
Yeah. Oh, what a horrible burden.
But she would see people dying that she knew were going to die before they ended up passing away. And she was very agoraphobic as she got older because there was like so much sensory overload, and it would get so bad that they would move. And I remember being younger wondering, why are Grandma and Grandpa always moving? Like they would move, they'd live in like Wells, Nevada for 4 years or 10 years, and then they would get up and move and they'd be out in Thousand Oaks, California, and then they would go all the way out to like Virginia, and then they would move from there to somewhere else. And I found out it was because my grandma would get so bothered by stuff, my grandpa would just get up, move, they'd go somewhere else.
Do you think it was multiple like entities, or was it a single thing that really bothered her the most, like you?
They were not very clear on it. They kind of like tried to skirt around the subject when I asked. And so, yeah, I believe it's a generational thing. And I've been followed by something since I was probably about 15.
Can you describe what this something is?
Sure. So, again, this is going to sound weird, but this started at first, when I kind of perceive a lot of other things. So I had things happening to me when I was younger, but nothing really negative till I was older. Like as an example, when I was younger, we had moved into a brand new house. Nothing had been there before except for an orchard. We moved there when I was 2. From the time I was about 3 to probably about 6, anytime it would rain, not that it rains a ton of times here in California, there'd be a little boy and girl outside the window, and they wanted me to go outside. And my mom would tell me, there's nobody out there. And I'm like, there's a little boy and a girl, and the little girl's crying. My mom's like, no, you're not going out. So this would happen every time it rained. Finally, one time, I go out because the little boy and girl are there. We used to have these old eucalyptus trees that used to be there when the orchards used to be there, where our house was built. And the little girl and the boy were telling me, the water's coming. We need your help. So they showed me in the tree where there was a hole like in the bottom of the tree. And we never would even put it, if our toys went in that stupid little area, we would not go in there because there were all these black widow webs, and there were webs. And I'm like, I'm not sticking my hand in there. And this little girl was crying, we need to get our key. You need to get your key. And so I'm like, okay. And I'm like, we'll get it. And they're like, well, we can't reach in there to get it. So finally, I reached in and I grabbed this. There was this key in the hole in the bottom of the tree.
Wow.
Why I reached in, I don't know, but it was like an old skeleton key. So my mom saw me out there, started yelling at me, and I came in with the key. And my mom said, where did you get this? Where were you out there? And I was telling her, well, the little boy and girl told me they needed the key to get home. The water's coming. Well, I don't really understand all this. So my mom, scolded me and took the key. She put the key on her dresser drawer, And within a few hours, the key was gone. And then my mom started yelling at me, wanting to know where the key was.
Right.
I couldn't reach the key. And after that, I never saw the little boy and girl again.
Mm.
And my mom even said that the boy and girl would never come anymore. And they were dressed in like 20s, 30s period dress. And where our house is where when the St. Francis Dam broke in the Los Angeles area, all the water came through Santa Paula and Ventura and washed out half the town. And I believe, to me, I think that was the little boy and girl were trying to get to their key to get into their house.
Mm.
But
Maybe
I don't
they
know
perished in the flood, possibly.
Probably they found bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
It was like one of the worst disasters in California in 28, I think. I think it was 28 or something. But so I've always kind of seen things and heard things, but when I was probably about, maybe I was like 14 or 15, I'd have to say 15, no, 14. So I'd worked at another scout camp when I was younger. And I didn't drive at the time, so my friend and I stayed for the weekend because most people would go home on the weekend. And right before that, like we'd go out to the campsites and make sure all the kids were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And one night there was a group of kids who were out messing around doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing. So we'd always get the kids taken to their little area, their little troop areas. And we saw lights up on the hill. So we went up to where the chapel was, up on a hill. And there's kids out there with candles, and they're doing all kinds of stupid things. And so my buddy, I'm just going to say his name is Steve, started kicking over all these kids' candles and putting them out. And these kids were like, they were older than us, some of them. And they were like kind of cussing us out. And they were like, hey, we're going to get you guys. And, whatever you did, you don't know what you're messing with. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, And one of the kids was like, I'm going to curse you. And you'll find it tonight. I'm like, whatever. I blew it off. And we took these kids to their little scoutmastering. Like, hey, you know what? They were up here. They had candles. They could have started a forest fire. Well, that night, nothing happened. Because I was like, Friday night, Saturday, all the kids were going home. Saturday night, the camp's empty. The only people that were there in the camp were my friend and I in the entire camp. Like, it vacated. People go home for the weekend. We didn't have a car. I'm like, we have the whole camp to ourselves. We do whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
Keys to the kitchen, go swimming, do whatever. Nobody's going to bother with us. Go to the rifle range. We're together. It's fine. Saturday night, we went to bed, and it was like every other night. Nothing big, we're out alone, miles and miles and miles from anybody in the cabin. I wake up probably, I know the times, around must have been 3:15, 3:20. I woke up. I remember, that's weird. I woke up and I don't got to go to the bathroom or nothing. So I'm laying there trying to fall back to sleep. And I hear my buddy on the top bunk snoring. And they were little cabins for the staff, two bunk cabins. Nowadays they got 4 bunks in them, but there were 2 bunk cabins. And I started to see this light, near the door. And I'm like, that's not good. We're the only people here. But it was like a bluish, misty light. And this bluish mist started coming from underneath the door. And I couldn't move. I was trying to yell for my buddy in the top bunk to, hey, are you seeing this? But I couldn't say a word. I couldn't get a word out of my mouth. And as the mist started coming more and more into the room, but there was just this horrid, acrid stench.
Mm.
And a figure started forming in the middle of the room. Damn, I don't sound famous, but because I'm in the Myland house, but I'll say it anyways because I'm sure I can get rid of it if it comes back. But this thing started appearing, and it looked like a body with a torn up shirt with no flesh. It was just like tendons and sinew and muscle. And the hair was all crazy looking. And the thing started coming closer to me, and I tried to scream. I couldn't scream. And this thing jumped on me and started choking me. Mm. And as it's choking me, I'm screaming as loud as I can. I'm fighting with this thing, and it's scratching at my chest. And I finally break free from it, and I run over to the light. I flip the light switch on, nothing. And I'm clicking at the light switch. Nothing's happening. I turn around, and I'm still in the bed. And this thing is still on top of me. And then all of a sudden, I'm in the bed, and I'm fighting this thing again. And I'm looking up at the clock. It's still like 3:30. Again, I fight myself free. I run for the frickin' light switch, and it won't turn on. And I look back, and I'm still in the damn bed. And I'm still fighting this thing. And it's scratching me, it's choking me. And this goes on several times. So probably about 3:40. And I finally break free, and I'm able to turn the light on. I wake up my buddy on the top bunk. My shirt's torn. I have bruises on my neck, scratches on my chest. And he's like, what the hell happened to you? And I'm telling him, and he doesn't believe me. But this happened, right? So I know what sleep paralysis is, and the old hag syndrome. Mm-hmm. And I now that I'm older have sleep apnea, and I know the difference between that. I've had like sleep paralysis where I can't move and like you're trying to wake up. That's a totally different thing. This happened to me over and over and over for about a year, to the point where I'd be at home just laying there and I could feel it. Like I'd wake up, and it was always around 3:30. And I was like, here it comes. And I would just wait for it. And I'd just get this chill over my body, and I would take the beating and the attack. When I was at scout camp, we had a chaplain that was there. And when he came back, I spoke to him. And he was at the seminary at the time. And at that time, when I was younger, I was actually considering going into the seminary. And not a single priest, not a single brother would believe what I told them. Like, why would I fake the bruises on my neck, the scratches on my chest? You know, and they're like, oh, well, you're making this up. Why would I make that up? So this went on for quite a long time, and I got no help from the church. And I was raised Catholic, and I got no help.
But
to the point where it just... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. That blows my mind, just listening to you go through that. And I know it's so emotional for you, and I'm so sorry. And thank you for sharing all this, because it's a big deal. Especially the Catholic Church. They have people that are trained to not just believe people that go through things like this, but to help them through it and treat, if that's not the right word, but help someone go through a process where something like that is attacking them. So for them to just dismiss you like that so quickly. I don't understand that.
Right. Well, I didn't either. And it kind of turned me away from a lot of that, which is sad. So I had no help with them. And I finally found one of my friend's mothers, she's Native American. And she got me in touch with a shaman. And he gave me a few items to carry with me. And she made me something similar to a dream catcher to keep with me at where I sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a sweat with the shaman.
Mm-hmm.
And he performed like a ritual on me, and it worked. And for years, I went, no issues. But after that, like that thing had followed me home. And no longer was it attacking me, but it started attacking my older brother. And so much so that my older brother wouldn't sleep in his room. He'd sleep somewhere else. Like, I got to the point where I never wanted to be home because I was always worried something was going to happen in my own house. So I would rather stay with friends.
And it wouldn't happen at your friend's house?
No, not really. I never really had any issues when I wasn't there. And since then, my parents' house has had a lot of issues. A lot of issues. Like, my mom, like, oh, I don't really believe in that.
Mm.
Well, you said you heard the kitchen drawers opening and shutting.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't really know what that is. Like, she's in denial of this, right?
Right.
It got so bad that my parents moved out of their house about 1.5 years ago.
No way. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to do what your grandma did. Robert, so you mentioned the bad smell, and then the thing, it had a torn up shirt, which is exactly what it did to you, and I'm assuming your older brother, and then it had crazy hair. I mean, but what did it look like? I mean, was this a person,
Okay.
or what is it?
Well, it was like only half, like from the torso up is what it was. Like, it had no lower half.
Yeah.
It was physical.
Did it have a face?
Because it did have a face.
What is it?
So I'm going to describe this. It looks like a face with no skin.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna bring this up, but it has nothing to do with a band or anything. But the only way I can describe similarly how it looked is like Eddie, which is the mascot for Iron Maiden.
Yes.
Years ago, because like he
Mm-hmm.
progressed throughout the years, but it looked similar.
Mm.
In fact, it looked like him after the fact that I had these issues where he kind of morphed into something similar to that and then to something else later. But it wasn't because I listened to that kind of music at the time.
Right.
But that's the only thing I could say. Description-wise, looked similar. No tick lock, no none of that stuff. But the muscle texture, the everything,
Yeah.
and this thing recently, a couple of years ago, I'd moved a few times, but it had nothing to do with that. It was just like moving with the family, this and that. Even the time in the military, I had one issue. We were out on a field exercise, and I had that happen to me, which I thought was crazy. And it was like a couple of weeks before I got out. And I was glad I got out, because to me it was like, it's on where I was at.
You were sleeping out in the field, or were you in the barracks and this happened?
No, I was out at the time. I think there was a tent with like 4 other people that we had. It was like a larger tent. And this thing attacked me in my bag. And it was a brief attack, but it was enough to bruise me up.
And did any of the other guys wake up? I mean...
No, not a single person woke up. I've got dogs, And a couple years ago, when this started happening again, my dogs would sleep through it, or they'd be gone. They wouldn't even be in the room, which is weird for them because they sleep with us.
Right.
And they, like, a mouse farts down the street and they go off.
And they'll go crazy, but not when
I
comes.
mean, I've had the dogs cower before stuff that I've seen things move throughout, our old house or this house. But this thing, nope. Or they'd bark at something and then I'd look over and I'd see it and it'd kind of like go away. This, they wanted nothing to do with it. Like, what's crazy is, like, about 3 years ago, it started happening again and again and again. And it was sort of like, shit, here it comes. What am I going to do? And I tried everything. I tried, prayer to St. Michael, all these things that have worked for other stuff for me. Nothing. And I, could not reach for the prayer that I had there. Mom had gotten me holy water, the salt, the oil, everything. Nothing was working. I called on my grandparents to help me, and it kind of went away. And I haven't had an issue since last year. But when it came back to this house, I was like, shit, I haven't seen this thing in years.
Yeah.
I thought I was over this.
Yeah.
But when it got there and came into the room, it was like, I found you. And it was like so joyous and happy that it had found me.
It was joyous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like it laughed. It said, I found you.
And then it actually did it did the choking and the scraping and the tearing and the bruising.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that, it must piss you off so bad.
Yeah.
What was
now, I don't know whether these are the same things that bothered my grandma.
Right.
Or her grandma. I
Right.
don't know. I don't know this. But why me? I could see maybe now, looking back, well, it's trying to discourage me from maybe going into a priesthood or something. Maybe it did its goal. I mean, I'm happy now that I got my wife and her kids and everything else, but...
Right, but you're not trying to go into the priesthood anymore, so why is it screwing with you? Like you said, but you've had a break. So, okay, so now, Robert, I see why you said in the email that you're hesitant to talk about this stuff because you don't want to exacerbate.
Well,
and I've...
there's talk of bringing things back.
Yeah.
And whenever I have talked about this, I've never been at my house. I've always made sure I was away, not even in my car.
Are you away now?
Outside of my car talking to somebody.
Are you away now?
No, I'm in my house.
Oh,
driving away before the conversation, but a bunch of stuff started happening.
Right.
It seems like all day things have been preventing me from, on my way into work, almost got into a wreck. Okay. Maybe
today?
That has nothing to do with anything. Yeah. On my way home, almost got into another wreck. I'm not speeding, not nothing. I went in early to get home early to make the call. As I'm getting home, my son calls me, my car broke down. I need you to come help me. Hey, dude, I'm getting a call in a few minutes. I'm stranded. And I'm thinking, maybe this isn't coincidence. I don't know. Maybe it is coincidence, and I'm just pulling straws, going, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, but I don't know what else to say, right? And my wife was here when she was taking off to go to school a few minutes before the call, and she's like, there's nothing I can do. Maybe you should go see how he's doing. And I was able to talk him through getting his car started.
Okay, so
he just brought it here and dumped it.
Holy shit, Robert.
But it was
that's weird.
So,
I mean, that is very strange, right? All in one day.
Yeah. And at work, they're like, hey, we're going to need you to stay late today. I'm like, well, actually, I came in early so I could get off early. And they're like, oh, can you stay late? And I'm like, I can't tonight. Any night I'd stay late. And I do stay late a lot. But it's like, I can't tonight, And they're like, okay, cool, we understand. You sure? We really need to stay late tonight. We need to get this out. I'm like, no, I can't tonight. I'll come back in early tomorrow.
Oh, man.
But it almost seemed like, this is preventing me. This is preventing me. It's kind of like when stuff has happened, and I'm like, I want to get up in the morning and call my dad. This happened, And when I get on the phone with him a couple days later, I don't remember why I wanted to call him. Almost like something's blocking it.
Right. I don't want this to cause any problems, I don't want that at all.
I'm pretty secure about things now. And so I'm all right with talking about it.
Robert, when was the last time?
Somebody else needs to hear this.
No, finish that thought. Someone else does need to hear this, I'm sure. Yes, finish that thought. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying maybe, like at first I was like, I'm not going to really talk about that. I'm thinking, but when all this stuff started happening, I'm like, yep, I will. Because maybe there's a reason that something's preventing me from talking. And screw it, I'm going to do it. Worst case scenario. I've been through it before.
Is there always the bad smell before this thing, before you?
Not
like
always.
Not always.
Not always. It's like rotten meat.
What the hell do you think it is? What is that thing?
Ash and rotten meat. I don't know what else to explain it. It's like it's just kind of sulfuric.
Yeah.
We in this area. There's oil seeping out all over the places where all the oil wells were. It smells sulfurish. I know, right? Doesn't sounds weird. And at the time all this stuff started happening to me when I was younger, I didn't know the significance of 3 a.m. I didn't know the significance of, the acrid smell. I didn't know the significance of this. And a couple of the priests were, well, how do you know that? What have you been I haven't, nothing. And I didn't have internet back then.
Yeah, you're like, I know because I can smell it. That's how I know, because it's happening to me.
Yeah, I'm 47. We didn't have that information. I had to go to library. Right. And then my parents were getting worried that I'm trying to get all these occult books. And then I'm thinking, maybe I shouldn't be looking into all these occult, because I'm trying to find answers. What is it? How do I stop it? I had to find a solution on my own to stop it. And my parents understand now all the shit I went through, and whether that happened because of other crap that happened to me when I was younger, I don't know. Whether because I have some bad memories and some hate towards some people.
Do you think that, because you mentioned maybe it's generational and some things that some of your ancestors were into,
that too.
Maybe what was plaguing your grandmother was maybe the same quote unquote thing, but it maybe looked different to her and it looks different to you.
Maybe like that. That's the thing. Like my family history is like we can date it back a long time. Like on my mom's side, Native American and Mexican. And I know where my grandparents' story, my grandpa on her side came from Mexico. I know the whole story. I know the family. I've been there. My grandma's side on my mom's side, not a lot of information because it was illegal for people who were mission people or Native Americans like Tonga Gabrielino Chumash to marry somebody who was not. You weren't allowed to intermarry back then. My great-grandmother. So they kept it hush-hush. My grandma would never tell us about it until she got older. So we're trying to dig out info. So I got ties to this land that's been here for a long time, but my dad's family's been here since before the revolution. Like our family was part of the French that set up getting arms for the United States for the revolution. His family, for years, was all involved in the monarch in France. A lot of stuff went down. The Jacobins, like all these things, like I have ancestors that got the guillotine along with Marie Antoinette because they were handmaidens for Marie Antoinette. But his family, the reason he got saved and got into America because he was a French ambassador to the United States for George Washington, and the reason he got to stay in was he was a Mason. And the family was heavily into that until probably about Vatican I or Vatican II coming out. And then everybody had, well, Vatican I, and the church said, oh, no, you can't do this. And then they started Knights of Columbus, and my family was in the Knights of Columbus for years. But is it that? Did something happen along that time? Because I know they wanted him to go back to France to get the guillotine. I don't know. What is the generation? To me, it's got to be generational, because there's a lot of people on that side, my dad's side of the family, that have had those kind of experiences. Now, my mom's side, recently found out my grandma had stuff going on from my mom's side. But it's always been like females in my family that have gotten this. So I don't know what, like, I don't really have answers, because everybody's always kept everything hush-hush, and nobody wants to talk about anything.
And this is a completely conjecture, but I'm just wondering what you would think about it. Do you think it's as simple as the blood running through your veins, or do you think it's more, like you said, the background and certain people practicing certain things in your family that have, followed people?
Well, that could be too, because, well, like our last name is related to a civet type animal.
Yes.
That was used in perfuming, but they also made what were called simples back in the day, which were botanical cures for people. We do have family members that were burned because they were witches, because they made botanicals or simples for people in salves. They were also involved in alchemy and everything else. And during the way they rose up within the monarchies they were alchemists for the king. And that's how they stayed in the different areas. There's also, that part of the family that we can trace back has always been, and they were always still, that whole line coming down with all the family secrets. We're also on the Masonic line. I'm not saying the Masonic's bad. I'm really getting to the historical stuff. But I'm just saying, yes, my family was into alchemy, was into botanicals, was into stuff that nowadays you're an herbalist. Oh, that's great. Everybody's going for the homeopathic cures. But back in the day,
it's not the same anymore.
You were a witch.
Yeah.
You were a witch. And they practiced. In fact, okay, there's something crazy that I never sent you, but my aunt, before she passed away, she used to make simples. And she kind of got into this because of osmotic tune for one of my grandmas. She was in historic Williamsburg, used to work there, driving down a back road and sees a little bookstore. Oh, that's quaint. That's cute. I want to get a little book. She loves to read. Well, she's into botanicals and everything. Finds this leather-bound book in the back, really old. Mm-hmm. And the guy, and at the time she was working at William and Mary College at their historical society and working in the museum. She recognizes this is a really old book, and it's on botanicals. So she asks the guy, I'd like to buy it. And he's like, it's not for sale. Wife comes out. She starts conversing with my aunt. And then she said, we've never had that for sale, but I'll sell it to you. And my aunt's like, what, name your price? And they're just like, I don't even know what the price was, but my aunt bought it. So my aunt's going through this. And it has like people who attributed to the book and everything else. And it was a family member was listed as one of the contributors to this book.
What?
Yeah. And then the book was from like the 1700s. And turns out, so my aunt believes it was fate to go to her.
Oh my gosh. What are the chances of that?
Right. So I think it is a generation. Something's got to be generational.
I mean,
that's my only thought. And I just want to break the bad luck part of it. And the crap
right. No, absolutely. And moving is one of the most stressful things that a human being can do, amongst another long list of stressful things. But everybody in your family has been trying to move from these entities or things that have been following them. But do you think that, obviously it sounds like it is a history and a generational thing, but does part of you, it must be scary, and hearing you tell those earlier stories, and even just a couple years ago when this thing was back in your life and terrorizing you, it is terrifying, of course, but in a way, do you also feel slightly empowered, like, no, you're not going to screw with me because you don't have power over me?
Well, at this point, yeah. But I was always scared for my kids.
Yeah.
I'm still scared for my kids.
Do they see things?
When I was, yeah. My daughter's now just starting to tell me that she's seen certain things, and
do you mind me asking how old she is?
That's fine. Just turned 18. But apparently been seeing certain things for a while. But I've never discouraged her. I regret discouraging my son because, he would always try to climb into bed. There's a man in my room. I'd go look. Nothing.
Oh shit!
I used to see the shadow person that would go from one closet area in the hallway towards his room, and I'd go in there and I wouldn't see anything. Now he tells me, well, that thing used to stare at me in the corner and come close to the bed and hang over me, but you would tell me there was nothing there. My whole thought was, okay, all I saw was it went into his room. I go in there. I'm pretty perceptive. It's not there. So I tell him, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're not, it must have been a dream. Go to sleep. Because when he's doing this every single night, as a parent, you would sleep sometimes, not realizing that shadow figure was bothering him.
Robert,
because shadow figures have never bothered me,
Well, yeah, you probably would have welcomed a shadow figure compared to what you experienced. No offense to anybody else, but yours was extremely invasive. What was the time frame? And you don't have to answer any of this, of course. I know we're kind of going off what we were talking about, but he did mention seeing shadow figures at Camp Willett, right? So what's the time frame as far as seeing a shadow figure and then and then seeing a shadow figure at your house?
Our old house?
Yeah.
Probably from when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved there at that place. He must have been 4 or 5 when we moved there, and he didn't really start seeing something there till he was 8. We moved out of there 10 years ago. And this thing at Willett happened probably about maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago. And he sees stuff now. He's seen things that I've seen. Like when we moved into this house, he saw exactly what I saw. Like this place used to be used. It was a rental for a while, and these people that were renting it were like MMA fighters, and they would beat the crap of it. They would have frickin' fights in our backyard with a ring in the house, and in the backyard there was an actual ring in the backyard. No joke, and they would have parties, and they would have pay fights in the backyard of where I'm living now. And my neighbors, when I moved in, were so happy because they're telling me all this stuff. And I'm like, are you serious? But when we moved in, there were blood stains all over the wall in the garage. And I finally had to tear out parts of the wall just because I'm not cleaning all this. But there's blood stains still in the garage that I can't get up. And it's blood stains, not brown paint. I know what blood stains look like. And they were they used to practice here, they used to fight here, they used to this and that. But when we first moved in here, I saw an old man walking up our stairs. And my son told me about it within a couple of days of us being here. There's an old man that keeps walking up and down the stairs. And I go, yeah, I know. I've seen him in the garage too. And I said, tell me what you feel about him. Yeah. And I said, tell me what you see about him. He's like, he's just there. And I go, is he threatening you? He's like, no, he's just there. And
do you feel the same thing?
He just kind of walks away. Yeah, I don't feel there's anything negative. And we both tried to talk to him and tell him everything was going to be fine and we'd take care of his house. And You really haven't seen him. But my son's seen stuff here in the house that have woke him up and scared him a few times. And,
Do you mind?
that
I mean,
really
is
doesn't
it
happen much.
besides the shadow people, or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At this place, he's seen a couple shadow people, but nothing big. But he woke up one night here, and he screamed, and he said there was like a figure in his room, and it had like a mask on, and the eyes were yellow, turning red, and started walking towards his bed. And when he screamed, it was still there, and as soon as my wife and I ran in, it disappeared. Which, when I walked in the room, I was just like, holy shit, like you could feel like an energy.
But you didn't see it, but you felt it.
Yeah. I didn't see it. And that's the only thing, anything negative has happened here. Like our old house, we'd see people walk through, and it was just, I'm sure, all attributed to the flood and everything else. And it was nothing ever negative. You know, I'd smell my grandma's perfume, whatever. Nothing negative. But the other stuff is negative stuff. And whether it's because I'm a little perceptive, maybe. I'm not psychic.
Well, I think you're a lot perceptive.
and I want to go see that. I can't control what I've seen, what I've done, or what I can hear or feel.
Do you just wish that it would all stop, though? Or do you feel slightly lucky that you can perceive and see these things?
In a way, I feel lucky, and other times I wish I didn't.
Like you just want to sleep, right? Like you just want you to sleep, your kids to sleep, and no problems.
Yeah. And my wife's sort of like, I don't really know because I don't see it.
She doesn't see anything.
Although but I do know that, like a couple months ago when my son was still staying here before he moved out, he heard a bunch of noises down the street. And he heard what he thought were somebody screaming. He said, I don't know if somebody was getting raped or killed, but I had to run down. He got up in the middle of the night and ran down the street in his pajamas, with nothing with him, and went down one of the alleys to the railroad tracks. And I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? Like, he didn't tell me till the next day. And then he said it started happening some more and more. And my wife, the first thing she said was, I think something's trying to lure him out there. Do not let him go outside. So I told her, next time this happens, you come wake me up. And him and his girlfriend were like, this happened a few times. Even she heard the stuff going on.
So it was just like the cow, the screaming cow at the camp.
Yeah. Yeah, but he was like he's terrified of clowns. And he's like, I saw a clown outside the window, and it walked down towards where I was at yesterday, which was the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't even believe you just didn't grab it. He's like, Dad, I really thought someone was getting hurt. And he's like, I ran halfway down the alley towards the railroad tracks, and I wanted to go. But when I got into the alley to go down the railroad track, which is like half a block down, doesn't even have slippers on or nothing, just in socks. He's like, I didn't know whether I should go because it stopped after I entered the alley. And he's like, I wanted to go. Something was pulling me to go.
I mean, what a good kid, right? He thinks someone's in trouble, so he's going to go. Even though it's obviously seeming very strange, he still goes. But
yeah,
like your wife said, something's luring
you. Let me grab something
right.
to go. Like, I'll
Let
go
me
with
know.
you. I'll grab a firearm. Let's go.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Right?
Robert,
but
you mentioned
he's not him.
You mentioned that you and if you don't want to talk about this, you just say no, it's kind of off limits. Totally fine with that. But you mentioned that a couple years ago, it was like kind of the last thing that happened big, whatever, in the home, because you did. I don't know if you used the word ritual. I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't remember what you said exactly, but you did something that helped the whole thing. If you don't want to talk about it, it's fine.
To me, no, I will. It's like, so I did something that my aunt told me to do, which was, I know it's going to sound crazy, but it worked. And so I'm going to just have to believe into it. I called upon all my angels, and every angel and every relative that was passed. I figured if my my aunt was like, well, if your grandma could see all these things, do you think she'd let these things happen to you? And I just thought, no. If she could see these things, and she could see things that were going on, and knew stuff on the other side of the veil was going on, I know she'd be here to help me. So I called on my grandparents to help. And when they showed up, and the thing went away. And I woke up and I just said a bunch of prayers, and like it got to the point where I was just sort of like, I've got power over this. I can take care of it. But I couldn't do it alone. Like I thought, I'm just going to say, you have to leave, blah, blah. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. For me anyways. And I had to call on my grandparents to help me. And I believe that's what helped me. And to this day, I'm still, I've had other stuff happen, but not that. Not that. And so I'm just got to believe that if I have trouble, that I can call on them and say the prayer to St. Michael, because that seems to help, and just do what I need to do and know that I have to be in control. Like, I'm not going to let something control my life anymore. But, yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that helped me at that point in time, because I still have that old dream catcher that my friend's mom made me, the dream catcher thing.
You?
I've got the crystal. I've still got the crystal in the pouch that the shaman gave me. I have all that stuff still. But, I mean, maybe that stuff only works for a while. I don't know. I mean, it's in the garage now. But, I mean, I had rosaries. I had this. I had that. I had water. I had salt. It just didn't seem to work. I mean, it helped. It helped for a few days, and then it would come back. And then, so... Like, it wasn't as bad in this house. It wasn't like tearing at a shirt or scratching, but it was still the choking. And again, I know the difference between not being able to wake up from a dream, and my wife wakes me up sometimes because I'm like choking in my dream. That's a totally different deal. That is 100% different. I can tell you that from experiencing sleep apnea and experiencing that. There's a difference. Like when I'm awake and I know exactly what's going on and all this other sensory stuff's going on, there's a difference. I don't know how else to explain it because I know the difference.
So if this entity is choking you, it always leaves bruises or not every time?
Not every time. But it's been about a year or so.
I mean, that's not that long ago. That really just freaks me out.
It came back for like 3 years, but not every day, just for a couple of months. And I couldn't sleep. And again, like, I'm like, shit, I don't know what else to do. I'm going to go to confession. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to, and go talk to a priest because this is really bothering me and I can't sleep. And it's getting to the point where I could not sleep because I was waiting for this crap to happen. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to go talk to a priest. And I got the same crap. He was like, well, what are you dabbling with? What are you doing? I'm like, this is your job. If anything, this is your one and only job. And he blew me off like it was nothing. Again, a couple of years ago, and I was just sort of like, whatever. Like, again, I'm dealing with this on my own. My aunt would pray for me and this and that. And so I think it's handled, and hopefully it moves on. But it was just coming back after all that time. It was like, really, like, this is happening now. I'm an adult, to feel helpless. And at one point, I was just sort of like, I would rather this happen to me than my kids. So this is what's got to happen. F it, which is a bad thing to say probably because it's like, oh, no, you're inviting it, but I'm not. But you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah, you're just saying focus on me.
This is just happening. Yeah. And I know I've said that a few times. If this is the shit that's going to happen, let it happen to me, not my kids.
When it's at the peak, would it happen twice a week, 3 times a week, once a week? What was the frequency?
Maybe a couple times a week.
Oh God. Yeah, no wonder you didn't sleep.
I mean, it's just not this, but it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if something peaks from one point to like within a few months.
Right.
If it has something to do with my birthday. And I'm not saying it's all the negative stuff, but it's like more things happen. I see more things. I see other, I don't know how to explain it. I'm driving down the road and I see something like, shit, I know that person's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back and they're not, type of stuff. Or that is like the weirdest looking thing ever. Like I'm driving down the street and I come around the corner and in the back of this pickup truck is this thing that looks like a half praying mantis, half beast, eating something in the back of somebody's pickup truck. And I'm like, and it looks over at me like, huh, you could see me. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then I look again and it's gone. I'm not an insane person. I'm a pretty sane person. But it seems like within a few months, things ramp up and then things go away. It doesn't mean I can't walk into somewhere and go, nope, don't want to be here. Or this happened here, and I could tell this happened here. I know what happened here before I walked into the room. Or I can sometimes see people that have passed on, but not, oh, I'm a psychic. I can go into your house and tell you. No,
right.
I do not claim that. I wish I could be able to do something like that and help people, but I can't. My grandmother used to do that. She'd call the police and say, this person's missing, blah, 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 blah. And actually for a while, there was a police department using my grandmother to help them find stuff. But I never knew any of this until recently. So I don't know. I've just had a lot of experiences, really good positive experiences too.
Yeah.
I got to see my grandparents after their funeral. I got to see them. So it's a good thing sometimes.
Would you say it's mostly negative or mostly positive or neutral?
Probably mostly positive now. But maybe because I can have that positive stuff, I get the negative crap that comes with it.
Right. Do you think it's worth it?
Like, I don't know. If I talk to people about it, I think I'm crazy. The only reason I'm kind of talking to you is,
well, I don't think you're crazy, but
show kind of believe it.
Yeah, I talk about this stuff all the time, and I've seen weird stuff too, and experienced weird stuff too. Well, weird to other people, but interesting to us for the most part, except for things tearing at your shirt and choking you. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be talking about it to anybody at work.
Right.
And that, when I was working before doing professional stuff, I definitely would be put me on the rubber gun squad type of thing,
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah. I don't know. But I've had some beautiful experiences,
are you
one of my favorites.
Are you worried that talking about this is going to
Right now I'm truly not. We'll see. But I'm feeling all right about it.
Good.
I really am. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. I could go on for hours of stuff.
Yeah, and I want to have you back on if you want to, because I know that you do have other experiences, but I just want to reiterate, like I did at the beginning, Robert wants you guys to, let's open up a conversation about this stuff. If you have information about the camp or any of the other things, especially this entity that's been following him around and his family, get a hold of me and I will forward it to him. That is a big point of this conversation. And that is for everybody just to open up and say, hey, it is happening. It is going on. But it just sounds like such a situation of terror. I always say in your own home, that's the last place that you want this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had things follow me home, but not like this. This is a totally different deal.
Right. Well, it seems personal.
Yeah.
It just wants to terrorize you.
And I would rather it be personal to me than anybody else.
Of course, right.
To tell you the truth.
Or he can just, F off and just go somewhere else entirely, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. I'm sure
that would be
for
preferable.
Thousands of years, and it's going to continue to. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I know when it's there. Because it's just sort of like, I just get this gut-sinking feeling, and there's the hot and the cold through my body, and it's like, all right, here we go. And it's the waiting game.
It's horrible to
it
think that
it would play the game for a while.
Yeah.
Like,
And get joy out of
just-
it. Like you said, when it found you, I found you. It's great. It's wonderful. I'm so happy I found you to terrorize you. That's
Yeah.
But how horrifying is it to think that, like you said, this thing is probably timeless. Maybe never even been here on Earth and has any idea of what we go through, or has a care about emotions or feelings or fear, any of the things that we go through on a daily basis. It's just there for one
And
thing.
I'm sure it feeds on the fear. And
Yeah.
that's sort of like now I was like, no, I'm not going to give it that. Like, don't get me wrong, I get emotional talking about it, because how can I not? It's
Absolutely.
been a part of my life. But and now I'm like, well, whatever, I can't give it that. I can't give it the fear, and I'm not going to give it the fear anymore.
Right.
But I can't change what it's done to me in the past, because it really changed the way I thought about a lot of things. It made me doubt a lot of things. It made me look at things differently. It made me feel differently about talking about certain things to people, because people that I thought, were close to me, and I'd tell them, and they kind of laughed it off and blew it off like it was nothing. Even the guy that I'm still friends with to this day, that was my bunker at that time, like, he still doesn't believe it happened. He's like, I was there. I don't remember any of that. He's like, I remember you, with all the scratches and with all the bruises and all this, but I'm sure you did it in your sleep. Well, why the hell would I do that? I mean, to this day, when I go up to that camp, there's areas I won't go in that camp, just because I won't go into the staff portion or stay in a certain room. I've stayed up there several times because I used to volunteer there until a couple of years ago, but I won't stay in that one room. Not that I think it would come back. It's just why give it that much more? If it's like I can stay one step away, why not? And I don't think and I know it's not there. It's just, I don't know, try to protect myself however I can.
Well, we're going to follow
have my
up.
own prayers and things.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to follow up really soon. But, I mean, I just don't want this conversation to open up any doors or crack a window or anything for...
I that's the thing. I don't know if that does. Like, there's the talk about, if you talk about it, that's what worries me sometimes. But it's if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, really, at this point.
Yeah, they are kind of operating on a different level as us, right? So, I know. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe talking about it doesn't mean shit to them.
Right. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's just a wives' tale or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe it's our own fears
right
feeding into it. And then you talk about it, it's on your mind. So it's, they're like, oh, well, hey, you're thinking about me? Well, guess what? I'm going to come and visit you. But that's okay, because like you said, you're like, I'm ready for you. Bring it.
Yeah, but I don't want to challenge it. But I don't know if I'd want to write it down, but I want to write it down because I don't want to forget it.
Well, yeah,
but
I understand. When you write it down, it makes it so much more powerful and real. Like,
all the little key things I sent you, there's little stories, but not that. I wouldn't write it.
Yeah.
I just okay, this is the name of what I'm calling that little thing, and if I can't remember whatever happened, I don't remember. I'm not writing it down. I know that sounds really weird, but
no, I totally get that. Okay, so anybody listening, if you have any input on any of this, especially personal stories, please contact me, Shannon at intothefrayradio.com, or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can go to intothefrayradio.com and click the contact page. There's all kinds of ways to get a hold of me, and then I can pass this along to Robert. Any information you have or stories that you have, even if you don't want to come on the show, fine. I will just pass it on to Robert. So, Robert, I would like to get you back on to talk about some of the other experiences that you sent to me, if you wanted to, of course, but thank you so much for sharing what you have tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, look forward to it. I'm open to all that. So yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Put Buddhist says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. First there is summer, and then there is spring. idea in his poem, The Four Quartets, where he says, when you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.